Effective communication skills. How to understand someone's view of the world. Hello and welcome to part 2 of this 6-part e-course, Effective Communication Skills. How to get what you want through effective communication. Hi, I'm Selina Stone, a Master Life Coach and Casting Director, here to guide you through this series. Now, you can download a written copy of this course at selinastone.com under the heading e-courses. In this module and the next, we're going to look into how people think the way they do and how you should tailor your communication style to meet their view of the world. We have, as we introduced to you last week, the meta programs. So just so you can refresh your memory from the previous chapter, meta programs are an internal filter that we pass information through. They are specifically related to the way that we sort and categorise information. Meta programs go a long way in predicting someone's actions. However, please note that there are no right or wrong meta programs. There are several meta programs, but let's go through the top 6 that are used in everyday and in business contexts. We have towards and away from people, the frame of reference, sameness or difference, reason, chunk size, and the convincer. We're going to take you through those in more detail. Now, the towards and away people always strive to achieve an outcome. They want to move towards something. In their move towards a certain outcome or goal, they find it difficult to recognise what should be avoided. Instead, they concentrate and focus on what they will get when the outcome is achieved. On the other hand, the away from people are in an effort to avoid a certain situation. They don't want to experience loss or discomfort and want to move away from something. Now then, what do you do if you want to know what type of person is someone? It's simple. Ask them this type of question. What do you want? What will having XYZ give you? What do you want in XYZ? This is what their response will tell you. The toward people will tell you what they want. And the away from people will tell you what they don't want. Easy enough? Now, come to questions, as in how to communicate with people who have a towards or an away from strategy. This is what you do when in negotiations with such people. The towards people. Work out what their goals are and what you can do to help them achieve these goals. Focus on the outcome and what it will give them. The away from people. This is where you work out what you can do to help them to avoid what they don't want. Work out and anticipate potential problems and assure them that these can be minimised or avoided. You can manage such people in this fashion. The towards people offer incentives, i.e. an outcome, emphasise their goals on what and how they can achieve them. And when dealing with the away people, use sanctions. Be aware that these people are usually the ones to bring up problems. So we have some influencing languages that you could, when talking to these type of people, when talking to a towards people, use words such as get, achieve, attain, include, obtain, have, want, etc. And when dealing with the away people, use such vocabulary such as not have, avoid, don't want, keep away from, get rid of, etc. Now, the frame of reference, the second major meta program, is your frame of reference. This is all about how people evaluate things, and this can be split out into 2. The internal people and external people. Hope you're still with me. Internal people stand true to their opinion and evaluate on the basis of what they think is appropriate. They make all decisions themselves and can have difficulty in accepting other people's feedback and direction. The external people, on the other hand, evaluate on the basis of what other people think is appropriate. They need others to guide, direct and motivate them. Since they cannot decide for themselves, they need external references. So, how do you know if someone is internal or an external person? You can ask them this type of question. How do you know that you have done a good job? How do you know that? And their response will speak for itself. Internal people will tell you that they decide when they've done a good job. And the internal people tell you that they know because other people or outside information sources tell them. Now, when you're in negotiations with these people, this is what you should do. The internal people emphasize to the person that they will know inside that they are right. Say that they have to decide. Don't bother about external factors or what other people think. They will not be interested in this. And when dealing with external people, emphasize what others think. Give them data and information to back things up. Give them feedback and reassurance. And you manage these people like this. When dealing with the internal person, these people have difficulty in accepted feedback or praise. They like to decide for themselves and don't like to be told what to do. They do their best when they have little or no supervision, so just let them be. Don't try to force your opinion down their throat. When dealing with the external people, these people need close management. They need constant feedback and reassurance about how well they are doing. They need to be told what to do, how to do it, and how well they are doing it. Be supportive and encourage them. Now, influencing language, internal, the words that you should say is, you know best. You'll know when it's right. Only you can decide. It's up to you, etc. And when dealing with external people, say things to them like, can I give you some feedback? I will let you know. The facts show. Other people think that, etc. Now we're getting into sameness and difference. This meta-program is all about people's perceptions of likeness and differences. There are main 4 categories with this. Sameness people will notice those things that are the same or match their previous experiences. They dislike change. Sameness with exception people will first notice the similarities and will then notice the differences. They prefer slow or gradual change. Difference with exception. People will notice the differences and then the similarities. They like change and variety. Difference people will notice those things that are different. They love change and they want it all of the time. So, how do you know what type of person they are? Time to ask them this type of question. What is the relationship between these 3 objects? What is the relationship between this X and a previous Y? What their response will tell you. The sameness people will tell you what similar qualities the objects have. The sameness with exception people will tell you first how things are similar and then tell you what differences they have. The difference with exception people will tell you first how things are different and then give you the similarities. And the difference people will plainly tell you what the differences are. You can use this in the real world in the following manner. I hope you've got your worksheet in front of you. We're going through lots today. In negotiations with these people, when dealing with sameness, Stress areas of agreement. Do not discuss differences. Discuss areas of similarities, how you both want the same thing. When dealing with people that are sameness with exception, first stress the similarities and then point out the differences. Talk about change as a gradual, slow process. When dealing with difference with exception people, first stress how things are different and only then talk about similarities. Focus on change and new solutions. And then dealing with difference people, stress how things are totally different. Do not mention similarities. Talk in terms of massive change and revolutionary. Now, in managing these people, the sameness people, you speak to them in ways like have them do the things the same way. They hate variety, so don't talk about it. Instead, talk about continuity. When dealing with sameness with exception, have them do the same things but with gradual improvements and changes. Initiate a gradual process of change by talking about it. The difference with exception people, downplay commonality by emphasising improvements and changes. Stress different ways to do the job and make changes frequently. And then dealing with the difference people, talk about the differences. These people will get bored at repetitive tasks, so have them do something new all the time. The influencing language, sameness people, is say words such as same, same as, maintain, keep doing, in common, keep the same, usual, similar, etc. Sameness with exception, their vocab would more be better, more, less, gradual, although, but, same, except, etc. The difference with exception vocab is different, new, changed, change, unusual, etc. And the difference people, speak to them with words such as different, new, radical, unique, revolutionary. The reason, the meta program called Reason, is all about people's opinions towards making choices, developing option and following procedures. Here there are two types of people, options and procedures. The options people are very good at developing choices. They want to experiment and therefore are more of the rule breakers or benders than rule followers. They are very good at making improvements and developing new procedures or alternatives to old ones. Now, the procedures people are good at following procedures and thus are rule followers, but they do not know how to generate them. When they've not got a procedure to follow, they get stuck. So here's a question. How do you know what type of a particular person is? Ask them this question. Why did you choose X, Y, Z? And their response will tell you. Options people will give you the reasons why they did it. Procedures people will tell you a story about how they came to do what they did. They don't talk about choices or options. They give you the impression that they don't have choices. Now, you can use this in the real world. In negotiations with these people, this is how you would handle them. The options people. Do not follow a fixed procedure for the negotiation. Concentrate on the choices and the possibilities and discuss them all. And when dealing with the procedures people, lay out a procedure for the negotiation. Don't give them with options or choices and don't expect them to decide on alternatives. Now, in managing these type of people, the options people talk about the possibilities and the alternatives. Tell them to think of new ways. Do not expect them to follow routines and make sure they do not violate procedures. Now, the procedures people, stress the procedures to do the work. Make sure there are procedures in place and that person understands them. Be prepared to assist if the procedure fails. And the influencing language. when dealing with options people. Words such as alternatives, reasons, options, choices, possibilities, etc. And when dealing with the procedures people, the correct way, procedure, known way, right way, proven way, etc. Then we come to chunk size. The need for details in an individual's life throws two categories of people at us. One, the detailed or specific person, and two, those who prefer large chunks of information or the global person. Specific people like to work with all the small details. They like to understand and go into pieces of work with the minutest of detail. In contrast, global people like to talk in big pictures and are not interested in details at all. They are conceptual and abstract. They'd rather give you the overall framework or brief of what is happening than go into details. Now, you know when someone is specific and when someone is global just by asking them any question and analysing their response. Specific people will give you all the details and go to great lengths to explain everything when you ask questions. Specific people become frustrated with global people because there is no detail in what they say. However, global people give you an overview without details. They tend to use large generalizations. Global people become frustrated with specific people because they go too far into detail. Now, you can apply this to the real world. In negotiations with these people, when specific, avoid generalizations and vagueness. Break things down into the detail and be specific. Present things in logical sequences. And when dealing with global, avoid details and present the bigger picture. Now, when it comes to managing these people, when dealing with the specific, tell the person in detail what needs to be done and ensure that there is a logical sequence. Do not expect them to think about the bigger picture. And when dealing with the global people, skip the details and give the person a broad overview. Tell them what the end game is and let them fill in the rest. Now, the influencing language when dealing with these people, specific, give them words such as next, then, precisely, exactly, specifically, first, second, details, etc. And when speaking with the global people, think words such as big picture, framework, in brief, result, generally, and the overview, etc. Now we come to the convincer. People make decisions and are convinced for only one of four reasons. It looks right, it feels right, it sounds right, it makes sense. How do you find out what kind of person uses what reason to make a decision? Now you can ask them this question. Why did you decide X, Y, Z? And what their response will tell you. The looks right people do things because the representation that they make to themselves is a picture that literally looks right. They will use visual words when describing their decision. The feel right people do things because the representation they make to themselves is a sensation in some part of their body which literally feels right. They use kinesthetic words when describing their decision. And the sounds right people do things because the representation they make to themselves is a series of words which literally sounds right to them. They will use auditorial words when using their decision. The make sense people do things because the representation they make to themselves is based on logic, which in their own mind they know is correct. They will use auditorial words when describing their decision, and they will use facts, data and reason. Now you can utilise this in the real world. In negotiation with these people, use the appropriate language patterns that match their decision process. If you are providing learning materials, make sure they are appropriate for the person, i.e. pictures, diagrams, facts, data, etc. Now, when it comes to managing these people, the let's write people paint a picture in words, draw a diagram and give them pictorial references to explain things to them. Let their imagination flow free, show them how to do it. The feels right people get their internal senses working by letting them discern what they have to do. Let them get their hands on the task under supervision and touch and feel and experience what needs to be done. And the sounds right people, have them describe to themselves in internal dialogue or an appropriate tone of voice what they are supposed to do. Tell them things, tell them what others say. They will make decisions after exploring all that they have heard. And the make sense people, they are the logical ones. So give them reasons for what you want them to do. Let them read instructions on how to do the job. Give them the facts, the statistics and the data. Now, influencing language. Use appropriate language as in what suits each type of person to help them make their decision. We're going to look into this in greater detail in the next chapter. But today we have some time for some action, so here's an exercise to test what you've learnt till now. When it comes to eliciting meta programs, part 1, remember you have your worksheets, so please view them. Now that you have seen what makes up each of the meta programs, what preferences do you have? Please take time out to read through each again on your worksheet and write down what your own meta programs are for your own self-awareness and why. Towards and away, the frame of reference, sameness, difference, reason, chunk size and the convincer. And in part 2, the next step is that in the coming week. We're going to get you to listen very hard to your colleagues and friends and elicit their meta programs as well. Write these down and then formulate a strategy of how best to communicate to a few selected persons. So you can do that in preparation for next week. Well, good luck. And once you've done the work asked of you today, then tune in to part 3 and remember, if at any time you wish to download this course so that you may fill in the questions on the worksheet, then please go to selinastone.com under the heading e-courses. As always, until next time, be lucky.